In this video, we're going to be running through the best settings for consoles in Black Ops Cold War. On screen now are timestamps to the sections of this video, so if you need to, skip ahead to the most relevant section to you. There are some sections in here that you can argue as subjective, dependent on user preference, but there are some essential settings that you should have enabled to perform to the best of your ability. You can get into the settings straight from the menus or in-game just by hitting start and going down to settings. Let's start with sensitivity. Nowadays, the normal look sensitivity is separated from the aim down sight sensitivity. The first two stick sensitivity options focus on your look speed, how fast you can look around while you aren't aiming down the sights. Now for me, I play on a 13 on Modern Warfare. This is labelled as high. The reason I play on this setting is that it lets me turn around quicker to face enemies that either have a shot at me or that I've heard running, for example. So in my opinion, the higher you can get this, the better. With the slower time to kill on Cold War, you will get far more opportunities to turn and face the enemy and potentially get the kill on them before they get the kill on you. Now, if you're coming straight from Modern Warfare, you'll notice that the sensitivity here only goes up to 14 as opposed to the 20 it is on Modern Warfare. So if you're looking to get your sensitivity to a level that you're used to from the previous COD, then you need to do a little bit of working out. As I play on a 13 on Modern Warfare, this is 65% of the maximum of 20 on that game, so 65% of 14 gives me 9.1, so I'll round that to playing on a 9 on Cold War. So this may be a bit of an overcomplicated way of finding out what sensitivity you use. So to save you the ball ache of working your sensitivity somehow on Cold War, on screen now are all the sensitivity calculations for each number that you play on Modern Warfare. So for example, if you play on a 10 on Modern Warfare, that's a nice easy 7 on Cold War. Now let's move on to ADS sensitivity. ADS stands for aiming down sights. This section will impact you when you're actually holding the aim button down as opposed to just looking about. Now if you're trying to be as accurate as possible, you want this to be relatively low. I've got mine on 1 out of 4, which works well for me. You'll notice the sensitivity clearly slows down a lot when I go from normal to aiming down sights. Moving down now to button layout, you can change this to tactical to make drop shotting a little bit more easy to do, but I don't recommend this particularly on this COD as drop shotting has been nerfed significantly. The same with flipping buttons, inverting vertical look and controller vibration. Unless you're used to playing with some of these switched the other way from different games, then I'd leave these as they are. Aim down sight assist. Now this particular one is only in effect for campaign and zombies, as you can see up there, but I'd leave this enabled, as well as slow down and strafing aim assist. Basically in this game the aim assist is very strong in comparison to other Call of Duties that you might have played, and as it says there, it slows down your sensitivity when your aim is on enemy targets. That obviously makes you more accurate and more likely to get the kill. Moving on to Airborne Mantle behaviour and Grounded Mantle behaviour. Basically this is set to automatic initially, which allows you to do that, so that would be a one jump towards an object that you want to climb up and it will take you straight up there. That's just one jump button that I'm pressing there. Now for me, I don't really like this. I prefer it to be manual, so I have to press it twice when I'm jumping up, and then flicking on press to on second press for Grounded Mantle behaviour just allows you to do things like hopping over, having a look over something without it taking you up straight away. So on that little bit there, for example, I had to press twice to get up there, and pressing once just hops me up next to it, which for me personally is better because I can have a little look over like this little bus here, for example, without getting straight up onto it and being completely out in the open. So I would recommend you do the same here. Aim down sight behaviour, leave on hold. Same for steady aim behaviour, leave that on hold as well. Armour behaviour starts on apply 1, but I change this to apply all. This is only in effect for multiplayer, so this refers to when you're putting plates on, basically, like you would do in Warzone. Attack vehicle control mode. Now this is set to aim based as standard. I find this to be quite annoying, to be honest. I put this on alternate. Moving down now to advanced, the stick layout, Southpaw Legacy. You don't want to change this, to be honest. Leaving it as it is perfectly fine. So if we look now at the minimum and maximum input threshold for our analog sticks, I do recommend you leave these as they are because it will take some getting used to if you start messing around with these significantly. Controller sounds, I have this disabled. Auto move forward and auto sprint also disabled. Sprint behaviour, toggle, I find this easier. Click it down once, you sprint in, you don't have to hold it down. Sprint cancelled reload. Now this is an important one. I personally have this disabled, so I can be, for example, running away from a situation. Maybe I've got low health and I need to reload. I can sprint away without the sprint cancelling my reload. This means you can get from place to place faster while reloading and preparing for that next fight. Parachute auto deploy, I have this disabled. This gives me a little bit more freedom with my parachute where I want to land. Although if you are constantly finding yourself hitting the deck and dying all the time because you don't open your parachute quick enough, then I would have this enabled. But personally, I have it disabled. Equipment behavior you want on hold. This will allow you to hold to cook grenades, for example. You don't want to press it once and then have to press it again to chuck it. Once down and release throws it. Now interact and reload behavior. I am used to contextual tap now from Warzone. It's not as easy as turning that on, unfortunately, in this game. So tap to reload, tap to interact, prioritize reload, and prioritize interact. Now, if you're running around opening chests, then you're going to want it to prioritize interact. Now, that isn't something that we really have to worry about on Cold War, so you want it to prioritize the reload. You don't want to be running around accidentally picking up weapons on the floor when you're fighting in really busy situations. So prioritize reload is where you want to be with this one. Moving on now to graphics, safe area bounds, you set that when you start the game. Colorblind modes, don't worry about that. Now, field of view is a really important one, so this is, I believe, the first ever time that consoles have had the ability to change their field of view. Now that little diagram there does show it very well. The higher this is, of course, the higher your field of view, which means the more of the game you can see. The lower this is, the more narrow your vision is. So for example, in this picture, I can see the maximum possible on my screen of the game. Now this does come down to a preference. I will show you the complete opposite end of the scale. If I move this down all the way to 60, you can see we completely lose the frame of the window. So if that just flicks back to 120 now, and then 60 again, you can see how much more of the game you can see at 120. You want to make the most of the fact we now have this ability to change field of view. So I'd aim for 90 plus, definitely. Now, ADS field of view, independent and affected. Now, if you're playing at a really high field of view like this and you aim down the sights with this mode on, then you can see it zooms you in quite far. Flick it on to affected and the aiming down sights will zoom to a value closer to your field of view setting. So it doesn't zoom you in as far. That looks like this. This is a personal preference. I tend to have this on affected. Brightness, that's down to your screen. But if you have this higher, then it makes seeing in shadows a little bit easier. Motion blur, you want to change this from enabled to disabled. With this off, you see a more true image of the game. You'll really be able to tell the difference in game when you're actually seeing this yourself. Now moving on to audio, again you have to adjust these levels based on what you prefer. Audio presets, now this is sort of down to you really. Treyarch mix is the default setting for here, but if you're having problems with audio, then consider flicking through some of these. Obviously if you're wearing headphones, which I think the majority of players now do wear headphones when they play games, especially FPS games, you may want to consider that option as well. But Treyarch mix is fine. Hit marker sound effects, you want to know when you've hit someone, keep that enabled. Voice chat enabled unless you want to mute the salty players that are in Black Ops Cold War lobbies, myself included. Voice and text chat channel, game chat or party chat. So party chat essentially means if you're in a party of people, disregarding any Xbox or PlayStation parties, just the actual game party, you can keep this on, which means that your team can only hear what you're saying rather than anyone else in the lobby. Game chat is obviously everyone else as well. Nothing here needs to be changed unless you're having problems with your microphone or audio. Moving on to interface now, all of these options I leave standard. Apart from ally health bars, that's one that you can change. If this is something on Cold War that you don't like, you find it distracting potentially, you have the option to turn these off here. Account and network section, none of this needs changing, and Codcaster isn't a section that we need to go into here. If you enjoyed this video or it helps you out at all, then please give it a like and subscribe for more like this in the future. I stream regularly on Twitch and you can find me via the link in the description. I'm JmCooKie, cheers.